Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run.
Welcome to Be My Guest. This is Jan Lewis, and today from Marlborough we have Lee Atherton, and she is a Reverend. You were ordained, and she does the end of life and grief coaching. And I read about Lee. Welcome, Lee.
Thank you.
In the January 22nd issue of the Community Advocate, Marlborough-based end-of-life coach driven by faith. And her buddy here is Shadow, and he works as a comfort dog. Is that right?
Yes.
Lee, you founded this about 10 years ago. Give us a history. How did you get into this?
I was taken into hospice chaplaincy in a way that I did not expect. Never thought it would be for me.
Yeah.
A colleague and dear friend who was a hospice chaplain was going away for a couple of months. And although she'd been saying, you'd make a great hospice chaplain, I kept saying, not for me.
Yeah.
And it's only 2 months. You can do it for 2 months. I was in between jobs, so I said, yeah, I can do anything for 2 months.
Yeah.
So I did, and I fell in love. Absolutely fell in love. And being with someone in their last chapter of life and with their family is such an incredible honor. You know, they don't know me beforehand, and yet they welcome me in, and it's just
You
amazing.
have to be a special person to be able to cope with. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was reading that you went to I guess it was the funeral service of a 21-year-old who had died unexpectedly, or she had committed suicide.
Yes, just
And
recently.
You brought Shadow.
I brought
Shadow is a black Labrador. Am I right about that? Black Lab?
Yes, he's an English lab, so a little bit different than what you might be used to seeing an American lab.
And that at the funeral, nobody else felt like talking, but when Shadow came up and sat with them, and he put his head in their lap,
Yes.
that did it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I've heard that. That's a good thing, boy.
Oh.
So then, you did it for 2 months. You were...
And then
Yep.
I worked in hospice after that for the next, off and on, as I took care of an elderly parent for the next about 10 years. And simultaneously had been taking coach training. Loved both of them, always kept both at different ends of the spectrum. One's end of life, and one is let's look forward and make life something different.
Yeah.
And then I found a program, End of Life Coaching, and it was, I can bring both worlds together.
Definitely the grief. Oh,
The grief.
Is he trying to eat the leaf?
He's checking them all out.
He's checking them out. But,
So
but did you
before-
deal with parents who were in the, let's say, in the assisted living or in the hospice living or at home?
All of the above.
All.
Yeah. So in hospice, it was everywhere.
Yeah.
And then as an end-of-life coach, wherever my client is, I will go.
Do they know who you are when you get there? Do you know why you're there? Do they know that?
Usually, yes.
Me too.
Yep. In hospice, not, I mean, there were times when they didn't know that I was a hospice chaplain.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Families don't want to tell the person who's sick that they're near the end of life, and the person who's sick doesn't want to tell the families, but they all know anyway.
Yeah.
So that was a challenge sometimes, but as a coach, it's usually the person who is at end of life who has hired me, so they're aware.
Wow. I've never, that's really, I have never heard, I'm sure not the only one who's ever heard that the person who is actually going to be passing away finds a hospice coach.
Yeah.
Now, and when you coach somebody who's at the end of life, do you just sit with them basically and listen to what they're talking? What do you do?
I like to say I help people live their dying.
Yeah.
So how many people do you know, or how often have you heard, if only I had,
Yeah.
or they're right near the end and I wish I could have seen so-and-so or done. So my coaching is a lot around discovering what those
Feelings
things are that people want to accomplish. helping to make it happen
Yeah.
if they're able to.
Yeah.
Ideally, someone would hire me not just days before the end, but even sooner. What are relationships that need to be mended, if any, and how can we help that to happen?
So in other words, you're sort of the middle person. You can take those wishes to the family and say, can you get so-and-so here?
Yeah.
Is that like it is?
Pretty much, yep.
How
So
would
it
it-
would be maybe not so much the family, me going to the family, but the person who has hired me going to the family.
And telling them.
I would say to him or her,
Yeah.
"Now, how can we make this happen?" They come up with me asking powerful questions.
Sure.
Helps them come up with the answers that are inside them.
How long do you spend with? Well, there's two different coachings here. There's the end-of-life coaching
Yep,
and a person going through grief coaching.
yeah. The grief coaching is more not just an individual. It tends to be more group coaching.
Yeah. And you have
Yeah.
workshops.
And I have workshops, yes.
5, what is it called? 5?
The 5 wishes.
What are those?
So the 5 wishes is a document that addresses end-of-life choices, not just your medical, do you want a DNR or not just who is going to be your healthcare proxy,
Yeah.
but so much more than that. And I use this document as a foundation. What do you want spiritually?
Yeah.
You know, do you want your religious leader to come in and bless you?
Yeah.
Do you want to have music playing? What do you want your room to be like? So a couple of things that I have are, do not close all the shades. I don't want a dark room.
Yeah.
I want bright and cheerful.
Definitely.
What do you want emotionally?
Mhm.
What do you want physically? One of the questions I ask people is, what level of pain do you want?
Yeah.
How many of us have ever thought of that?
Mhm.
But there are the choices. I've had some devout Roman Catholic people who say, I don't want pain medication.
Really?
Jesus hung on the cross. He suffered and died for me.
Okay.
I need to suffer in repayment. And I've had other people say, whatever I can have, give it to me. I
Yeah.
don't want any pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to be pain-free or alert and be able to communicate with those around you, or somewhere in between?
Have you ever been with somebody who actually passed while you were sitting there?
Yes.
I try to imagine that. It's hard.
It's there aren't words to go with it. It's profound.
If you're not the family, you're the coach. Do you get to hold their hand?
Oftentimes I have.
Any religion, you're
Any religion or people who have no faith tradition.
and that's fine too.
That's fine too.
We are talking with Lee Atherton. Lee was a chaplain, right?
Yeah.
You were also a fire chaplain for the Hudson and Littleton fire departments. Tell us about that.
Oh, so way back many years ago, there was a training for clergy in my denomination on how to respond to a crisis of some sort. And it was actually led by the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation, was where the person who trained us came from. It was a 3-day event. And I really learned a lot about this person who was a retired policeman.
Yeah.
What he was presenting was more for the world of first responders.
Right.
I was fascinated, I explored it, and since have taken those tools and resources to be a fire chaplain in the local department.
Yeah.
But I also serve on what's called the Greater Lowell Critical Incident Stress Management Team.
Mhm.
And many of us think of, when there's a crisis, those resources that come to serve the people who have been impacted, the victims.
Right.
What I do serves the first responders who have been there to
Yeah.
serve the victims.
And the traumatization that they go
trauma
through.
that they go through.
You can,
Yes.
I think it was right up the street here in Hopedale or Milford. One of the very popular tradesmen's bar or club
Yes.
just burned down.
Just recently, yeah.
You read about that too? I go by that all. Most of us on the way to Milford, we just go. They go back and forth.
Right.
Now I was sharing with Lee that what I know of Marlboro is I know how to get to the Solomon Pond Mall.
Yeah.
What girl doesn't, right? And I know the hospital pretty well. And I know Route 20. I mean,
Yeah.
I know I can take 20 right in from Westboro, Northboro, and just keep going.
Just keep going all the way into Sudbury.
And you're not far from the airport.
I'm not far from Route 20. The airport is just off Route 20 on the east side.
I didn't
So,
know there was a working airport there.
Unfortunately, it's not working anymore. She sold it maybe 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
I'm maybe off on the timing, but up until then, it was one of the oldest operating airports, if not in the state, then much further.
Lee, how can people
geographically.
get a hold of you if they'd like to have you?
They can reach out to Lee, L-E-E, at coachrev.com, and that's coach like a soccer coach, short, Rev, short for Reverend, and my website is coachrev.com.
I'm reading in this wonderful article. I mean, this is amazing. When I saw this, I said, okay, we've got to
thank
get this
you.
young lady onto our show. She says, I will help guide your journey to discover what is most meaningful for you and for those you love, before, during, and after death. And you also help people live their dying, make decisions and choices that honor their unique values and beliefs, and navigate the white waters of grief with hope and grace. And you're saying it's tremendously fulfilling and powerful.
It is.
What now, when you say help people live their dying, it fascinates me. Tell me about that.
So I like to share a story of a person who I served as a hospice chaplain. And this young man, he wasn't even 50 yet, had a wonderful Christmas, and by New Year's had been to the doctor and had been hospitalized and diagnosed with stage 4 bone cancer.
Oh my God.
He had a lot of regrets in life. He also had 2 young adult children with whom he was estranged.
Oh, yeah.
He, by the end of May, he had died. So it was very, very quick for him. And what was powerful for me, and what my hope is to give to all of the folks I work with, is one of my conversations with him, he told me all about these books he read over and over again, and who his favorite author was, and how he had always hoped that someday he might be able to meet this person. I was able to track the person down.
The author?
The author, and
Phone call?
email, phone call, like all over the place. And I did finally reach him, and fortune had it that he was visiting a family member nearby.
Yeah.
And said that he would gladly stop in. So this man was in a nursing home.
Overjoyed, I read.
And when the author walked in, I wished I had a camera for the
Yeah.
look on his face, right?
Oh,
So that was part of it. By the time he died, he had reconnected with his children. They had, he with each one individually, and then the 3 of them together had deep heart-to-heart conversations, and had gotten to a point where they offered each other forgiveness.
They came to see him.
Came to see him, offered forgiveness back and forth. You know, it was several visits, several phone conversations. And their last conversations was, I love you and I'll remember you always.
Oh my gosh.
To be able to be a part of making that happen,
Yeah. That's
I have goosebumps just thinking about it.
so you're not in the room with them when they visit. You're outside somewhere, right? Or are you in there?
It's different.
It's
Depends
different.
on what they want.
Something
first
that
time they
interests
met.
me. I don't understand. Okay, there are some families that have open caskets. My family does not.
Mhm.
Where I came from. The thing is, if you're involved with someone or you love someone, a spouse who wants that, and you're like, oh my God. My family, I think, prefers to remember a person as they were alive.
Right.
Keep the casket closed and put a nice picture, a few pictures like right there.
Yeah.
Personally, if I go to one with an open casket, I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's not the way I remember them. And now I'm going to have this in my head.
Yes.
I don't know. I took my son, he was very young, to see his great-grandmother. She had an open casket. Well, he took it very well. It
I'm
was
so
surprising.
glad you brought him. Most parents
Yeah.
don't, hide it from their children,
No, he had to go.
which makes it more frightening.
I know when I was a kid, there's only one open casket. And Dad and Mom were probably concerned about me. And Dad tried to tell me, I think, she looked like she's asleep. So I walked in there not too afraid.
Yeah.
I think but that was the only open one that we had.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that tends to be a religious preference or what, but
It used to be very, different religious traditions had what they wanted.
Sure.
Interestingly, geographic areas had different traditions.
Right.
And then what your heritage was. Did you come from France? Did you come from Germany? And what
Right.
were the regular traditions then?
Right.
It's much more fluid now,
Mm.
and there's a wide variety of what people want.
The Jewish folks like what's called sitting Shiva. I
Yes.
think it's 7 days, and the family that has lost their loved one is the host. Now, the way I grew up, everybody, I don't think they would have been emotionally prepared for something like that. It's hard enough going to the funeral and the burial. It's like, oh, we need a break. But they open their home,
Mm-hmm.
and people come and they'll bring food and things like this. I think it's great. Really, it's what a great idea. I'm not so sure about 7 days, but I could, maybe a couple of days, it'd be really fun. Nice. Not fun, but it would be helpful.
I know what you mean, yes.
Very, very helpful.
One of the things that they honor in doing that is really giving the people who are grieving the space and the time to really grieve deeply. We often hear, it's been a month, aren't you over it yet?
Oh,
Things like that.
no.
But it doesn't happen that way, right? And so many people feel rushed through their grief
Mm-hmm.
that they never really fully experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And as with many things, if you box it up and put it on the back shelf, it's going to come falling out sometime. So I think that's a real gift in the Jewish tradition that they
Yeah.
offer that.
Yes,
And for a whole year afterwards,
really.
the person is recognized as grieving. And then there's a ceremony a year after.
Yeah.
to-
I think in
to
the old
say-
days, they used to actually have the person in the living room parlor. They called it a parlor.
Yeah.
And the tradition of having an open casket was because in the old days, way back when, people wanted to be sure that the person was really gone.
Yes.
I'm like,
And there are movements now to go back to that.
really?
It hasn't been, it feels like forever that we've had funeral homes.
Yeah.
But it hasn't really been. And there's an amazing woman out in California who is an advocate for green burials,
Yep.
have much less of a footprint.
What's
if
a
we
green
just-
burial?
A green burial does not include embalming, which
Okay,
is all kinds of
my family
harmful
didn't do that either. no.
chemicals.
Right.
There are lots of different levels.
Yeah.
There was, I remember hearing on NPR a little over a year ago about a mushroom suit. You put on the suit with mushroom spores is put on the deceased, and they're put in the woods, a contained area,
Yeah.
and the
And that's
mushrooms
it.
take over. That's the ultimate green burial. But anyway, this woman encourages people to take care of their loved one
Yeah.
when they die.
Yeah.
To do the washing and the cleaning and the clothing, dressing, and even if you wish, she'll help you have calling hours and a ceremony at your home.
I know in the Muslim tradition, they wash the person who has passed. And then I think they wrap them in a sheet. I'm not sure from there what they do. But I know in September 11th, when they had the horrific, and the two brothers that caused it, one of the brothers, one's in jail. The other one, they could not find a funeral parlor who would take his body. Finally, Mr. Putnam is known as very generous up in
Yes.
Worcester.
In
He
Worcester.
did. He took him in. And they had a hard time from there finding a cemetery who would accept this
would accept him.
person.
So from the Boston
Yeah.
bombing, the marathon bombing, yes.
Lee,
yeah.
again, how can people get a hold of you?
They can email me at lee@coachrev.com. Go to my website, which is www.coachrev.com. There's a contact form there, and reach out with any questions or thoughts or
So if
what
you're a
have you.
person who is facing end of life, who has maybe a loved one who is, Lee is there for you.
Mhm.
She is there. It's up to you.
And
Can you-
so is Shadow.
Well, I was just going to say, can you wake Shadow up so we can?
I
This is her comfort dog. He went to school too, right?
Yes,
He had
Shadow
to.
stand.
Come on, Shadow. Let's see who you are.
Stand.
We'll see
Yeah,
if
good
we can
boy.
get a video of this.
Come around this way. Sit.
Oh,
Oh, good boy. So Shadow, I originally got to train as a service dog for me,
Yeah.
for PTSD, and he is certified. But I don't need that so much anymore, and found a way to have him certified as a crisis response dog.
Right.
Um,
And what he did at that funeral was just put
And
his
that's
head
that,
in
yes.
their laps.
yeah, and he will, so, Jim.
There he is. Oh, oh.
He will also, and there were some people who were sitting on the ground, he'll
Yeah.
come over and just lay across your lap.
Yeah.
Or just, he was laying on my feet, that's another thing he'll do, and just his presence.
Yeah.
You know,
Does he know when someone's crying or unhappy? Can he sense that?
He
Yeah.
senses when someone is in distress.
Yeah, he knows.
Hard to know what he's sensing exactly, but yeah.
Well, can you bring him to a hospice or that type of
I
thing?
do.
They'll let him in.
I can bring him, as a service dog, he can go anywhere.
Right.
As a crisis response dog, as a comfort dog, most places will
We'll take him
will
in.
take him, especially because he's certified
Right.
with National Crisis Response Canines.
Have you ever been called by a hospital that says, we have a patient here and we request, I don't know how to put it,
Yeah.
but they were
Can you
requesting.
and your team come?
Yeah, your team
and
come.
then I myself haven't. A lot of the folks that I work with in National, they get called to events, to
Yeah.
hospitals, to all over the place.
Now, if you've worked with somebody, their family, they invite you to the funeral, you can participate.
I can participate in the funeral. I'm being a clergy person, I can also officiate funerals.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
often do, and that, I love to offer that. If I've been with someone in
Mhm.
their end of life, I know them.
Yeah.
And if they don't have their own religious representative to officiate a funeral,
Sure.
instead of just calling someone who doesn't know you,
Yeah.
right, I'm there to do that. And there are a few funeral homes around who know me, who use me, because they know that I'll go out of my way
Yeah.
to get to know who a person was,
Mhm.
even if I didn't know them when they were living.
Lee, how far will you travel?
I travel all over.
Real- Out of New England? You can go.
I've traveled out of New England.
Okay.
Yep. A lot of the coaching work I do now can be done virtually
Okay.
on Zoom,
Yeah.
so that's a benefit. But yeah,
Now tell us about life, the other side of this, the life coaching. Who contacts you and what are they looking for?
oh, so I don't do as much of the life coaching anymore.
Yeah.
You know, just life. But those are people who know that I talked about parenting.
Yep.
And how to, particularly a mom who, before COVID-19, may have been a career woman
Mhm.
who then has a baby, and how do we navigate that transition?
Yeah.
And then when the child goes to school, there's a different transition.
Oh, yeah.
And then off to college and you're empty nesters.
Yeah.
So a lot of that in...
What about a family who's estranged? Do they come to you estranged from their adult child, let's say, or somebody else in the family, and they don't know how to cope with it? You know, they don't understand that that's that person's baggage. You probably didn't cause it. Maybe you did.
Yeah, I do. I've worked with people through the end of life process in that. And then grief, for me, grief is so much more than just loss of a loved one who died. It could be loss of a marriage, loss of a relationship, of your home, of any number of things. So in that regard, I have talked to people who have...
Lee, what got you into... Did you have experienced something yourself that really has made you suited so well for this? What drove you into this?
I've had experiences along the way, for sure.
Yeah.
I was with my dad when he took his last breath.
When he took his life?
Yeah.
Assisted, or did he commit suicide?
No. He was sick.
Yeah.
So I was with him, cleaning him up, knowing that he was near the end, and he just got this look on his face. And I said, Dad, you're ready to go.
Mm.
And my daughter had told him about when he died, he'd be able to go dancing in heaven with Graham, his wife.
Yeah.
And I just said, you see Graham, don't you? You see Mom, go dance with her. And he just grinned from ear to ear. And this is having been unresponsive beforehand.
Yeah.
And just breathed his last. So that's an experience that I think makes me understand on a deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of an experience that brought me into this, I can only say it was that hospice chaplain who said, come cover for me.
Well, did you go to college and major in something in particular?
I have my master's in divinity.
Yeah.
And so that's the college degree education, but then lots of training along the way, continuing.
What made you decide to do that, too? It's so special.
I love to learn, and I just wanted to be better at what I do.
And you learn about all the different religions, right? Their traditions. I like that. I've read books. Okay, let's look up Islam. Let's look up Catholicism, Christian Science. In college, I had a Christian Science roommate, and about a number of years ago, when I lived in Rhode Island, I had a new friend who was a Christian Scientist. You learn different outlooks. You really do. Shadow is amazing. How old is he again?
He's just about 4.
He is a big lad. Is he going to get bigger?
No, he won't.
He doesn't scare anybody. He doesn't scare me. He's very friendly.
He is very friendly.
He travels well.
He travels well.
He's got his collar that he's a service dog.
Yep. He loves children.
Yep.
And they can come
before
over.
we close, have you dealt with children who are in hospice?
One child. Quite a while ago, early on in my hospice career.
Yeah.
And then more recently, a very good friend had a 16-year-old daughter who died on hospice services.
Wow. And you met her?
I knew her, yeah.
You knew her.
I knew her for quite a while before she died. She had a life-limiting illness. And you talked about the Muslims and how they wash and wrap.
Yeah.
I had the incredible privilege and honor to sit with Mom and her daughter as Mom washed her baby girl.
This is
big
This is
baby
amazing.
girl.
These are things that we don't think about. We're going to have to close. It's too soon. Lee is a life coach, end-of-life coach. If you're grieving, if you have someone in hospice, if you're in hospice, or you're in a situation maybe at home where you really would like some help, Lee and her team, her dog, Shadow. Lee, one more time, how can they reach you?
Lee at coachrev.com, and my website is www.coachrev.com.
Any religion.
Any religion.
Rev,
any place along the journey.
Yep, it doesn't have to be Father this or that. It's Reverend. She's a chaplain for all religions.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll have you back on, because I think there's a lot more going here that you could tell us about.
Yeah.
And you're going to leave your card downstairs in the lobby?
I do. I have a card, and
you can
a
look
couple
for
of
it
brochures.
right there, Lee Atherton.
Yes.
Right there.
Yep.
Do you want to give out a phone number if they'd like to call you personally?
Sure, I'm happy to. It's 508-308-7116. That's my cell. You can call or text.
That's pretty good. That's really good. They're going to be able to reach you a couple of ways, too.
Everyone has different preferences.
How busy are you, Lee?
Busy?
She's busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm busy, but never too busy
To hear from you.
to support someone
Thank you for being
and
with
to
us.
hear from you. Yes.
And thank you for bringing Shadow.
Oh, you're welcome.
We'll see you next time. Be my guest. He stood up at the right time.
He did. Thank you,
Take care.
everyone.